Hey there, friends. Welcome to Hawkeye Speaks. Today I've got a very, very important, quick discussion for you. Quick, very interesting topic. Maybe I'm just going to hold the phone because I got to have the microphone pretty close so I don't have an external mic. Otherwise we get that time lag. But the very important discussion today is called, what is soil? What is soil? I hope that you have a definition ready on the tip of your tongue that helps to exemplify the complex nature of the substance that I'm alluding to. And if you don't have it right on the tip of your tongue, I can assure you you're not going to find an adequate definition by looking in the dictionary. Dictionary definition of soil really doesn't distinguish it from dirt, and it in some ways just emphasizes the pejorative use of the term, which is dirty, soiled, filthy. So, and then otherwise it states that the soil is a growth medium for plants, which is an inadequate definition, really. It doesn't meet the needs of not just agronomists, people working with land management and agriculture, but of our culture, our population, and of the spirit of the times. So, any of you guys read Decline of the West by Spengler? It's a pretty dense book. But I'm going to suggest that what Oswald Spengler was talking about in the Decline of the West was in a way the same thing that Lynn Margulis and May Wan Ho were alluding to when they say that the number one problem in the world is neo-Darwinism, and they associate that with reductionist thinking. Now, neo-Darwinism, as distinct from Darwinism, is essentially genetic determinism. The idea that genes and genetic material control everything. And yeah, I personally think that idea has caused problems in our world. And then also you can follow the trajectory of what we refer to as Newtonian mechanistic thinking from characters like Francis Bacon, Rene Descartes, others who were scientists and philosophers that had kind of ruled out a living aspect of nature. And on the inverse side, we've had in the West a tradition of process philosophy, from Heraclitus to Kant and Goethe spoke a bit about this, and then particularly Alfred North Whitehead. But we've also had the traditions of the East that are varied and wide, but in many cases never adopted these Western paradigms, Newtonian mechanistic thinking, and the reductionist paradigm. So I'm sure you're all familiar that soil health is catching on, regenerative agriculture, grass-fed meats, stuff like that. But I want to warn everyone that soil is not catching on enough. This understanding that I'm about to share with you, that I have gained through educating myself, I certainly did not gain it through any cultural means per se, or through the educational system in any way. I really had to completely drop out, and very much literally drop out of the educational system and society itself, and take the time to study, read many, many, many books, and listen to thousands and thousands of lectures, and to talk to people, individuals that really have been able to wrap their minds around the situation. Okay, so what I'm alluding to, that Spengler even was talking about in the Decline of the West, was this loss of complexity thinking and an adherence to reductionism that will then eventually flatten out the culture like a flat tire, like a dead object, a lifeless system. And this is what we're looking at. And with the word soil, it's not just about agronomy, it's about our culture and our entire understanding of the world around us. And in getting away from a mentality of kill and control, that we could kill everything we don't want and control everything we do want, and moving to a mentality of care and facilitate, that we can be stewards of natural processes, comprehend and copy nature, biomimicry, a popular term these days in agronomy, and really that is a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift away from the reductionism, the Newtonian mechanistic thinking, and into a more open view and what's the word I'm looking for? A participatory role in a living system world. So I'll go right ahead. Now, if you, hopefully, like I said, your definition for soil is right on the tip of your tongue, and you would have no problem sharing this with other people. But unfortunately, like I say, there's not really an agreed upon definition yet, and there are folks like Ray Archuleta, and I say like Ray Archuleta because there's many people that have endeavored to answer this question and to create a more clear definition for soil that works for this, to support the paradigm shift. And Ray Archuleta's definition is good, but also it's just not entered into the dictionary. This is something really to consider. It's a very simple question, but I want to urge everyone to really think about it. What is soil? And then I'll go right ahead and offer you my definition. Okay? And well, I'm sorry. I actually want to state first that that it's rather fascinating that in the West, in America anyway, when I say use the West in this context, is that here in America and in English, our modern American English, we don't have a word for gestalt. If any of you are familiar, now I don't speak German, but I am familiar with this German word, Gestalt, which means essentially that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, which Alan Savory in his book Holistic Management identifies as the fundamental law of nature, which I wholly agree with, that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. The whole cannot be understood from simply analyzing the parts. That it is a complex system, that when we add parts together, we get something else, another entity. And this is the word gestalt describes that. And isn't it fascinating that we don't have a word in the English language that means that, which that in itself completely exemplifies this paradigm of reductionism, this idea, which is really an ultimate hubris, and it is also the epitome of toxic masculine thinking, that you could define everything through a linear analytic process of thinking, a reductionist process of thinking, and it really defines our culture or lack of culture in some cases, many cases. So the word gestalt means simply that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, this is, and what do we use in English to describe that? Holism, holistic thinking, systems thinking, complex feedback loops. I mean, none of those terms are adequate in just saying gestalt. So I would certainly suggest that we maybe just adopt the German word into the English language, because it sounds English enough in itself, gestalt. But this is really a big point to consider as we ask the question, what is soil? Because I believe we do not want a singular reductionist definition for soil. We want a definition that supports the complex systems thinking, that endorses it, and that builds up our ability to look at this substance as a living matrix that is complex, in which the whole cannot be understood by the sum of or an analysis of the parts. Okay? So, here it is. My definition for soil is dirt, the base material, rocks and minerals, and the surface of the earth, okay, which again, this is kind of the definition in the dictionary, just leaving it at that. But no. Soil is dirt, the base material, plus plants, plus microorganisms, plus stabilized organic material. So to me, those are the 4 legs of the table. If any one of those legs is removed, the table will not stand. And we could also say liquids, gases, and we could also say the excretions of living organisms. But to me, these are byproducts of the first 4, and it's so what if we could boil it down to what are the essential components that are not singular but multiple that are holding this table up. To me, it is that. It's the dirt, the base material. It is living organisms, microorganisms, okay? Again, macroorganisms are part of soil too in a way, but they come as a result of this living matrix coming into existence. But we do not have soil without plants. Plants are a part of soil. They are not just, soil is not just in service of plants. Soil and plants exist together. You cannot have healthy soil where we have no plants growing, because plants feed soil biology. The presence of living plants is what makes the scaffolding, the arena for the microbes to show up and do their work. We don't have one without the other. And then stabilized organic material is essentially carbon. It is plant material and even animal materials, organic materials that have been integrated into the ground through not just the natural systems processing, like being trampled by animals, or being plant materials being held down by snow and rain and kind of decomposing on the surface. It is critical that these materials be incorporated into the ground through the actions of living organisms, the microorganisms, the processing by microbes. And that's what takes it from organic material to stabilized organic material and creates soil carbon, okay, the soil carbon sponge. So these are the 4 legs of the table that is soil. Dirt, the base material, plants, the food material, the engine, okay, the energy capturing device, plants, microbes, the processors, the workers of the system, and organic material, okay. That's my definition for soil, and that soil is gestalt. It is a complex system, a whole that cannot be understood by the sum of its parts. We can take microbes out of the soil and study biology, but if we don't understand the ecosystem that is giving rise to the microorganism's function, to their purpose, then we really lack the ability to fully understand what the microbes are even doing. Similarly with plants, well, we actually know that you can grow plants in styrofoam or in a benign material and feed them fertilizer solution, simple ions in aqueous solution, and they will grow. Plants will grow. They will be alive. But this is much different from plants as an integral component of the living system that is soil, because there's just a whole nother level of what's going on in that living matrix, and then the substance that can subsequently be found in plants. Plant secondary metabolites. That term, plant secondary metabolite, refers to a product that is created in the plant that is not required for its primary metabolism, and even potentially that is not created through the plant's primary metabolism. These are secondary because they require additional systems to be built up and then created within the plant. So, and again, the stabilized organic material, carbon in the soil. Out here on the rangelands where we see bare ground, you'll see 0% organic material in the ground, the dirt. And if we don't include this into our knowledge, and to me, as I've indicated, it is a more important factor than the liquids and gases, which are a byproduct of the living matrix in a way. The soil carbon sponge is a great term, and it implies that the soil carbon, this living matrix, is a sponge, and it's not just for water mitigation that can absorb water and hold it and release it effectively, effective hydrological cycling. The soil carbon sponge is actually a storage facility for all forms of energy, and soil mitigates all energy fluctuations on Earth. This is why it is critical that culturally we gain a more complex understanding of what soil is. Oh, excuse me about that. Didn't expect the phone to vibrate. So currently there is, as I had said, there is a rising awareness around regenerative agriculture, and okay, well, I'm sorry about that. And soil health, grass-fed meats, the destructive nature of the practice of tillage. And it's funny, I was mentioning the book, The Decline of the West. And we could simply say, one way to look at that would be to say that the decline of the West is our agricultural processes, large-scale destruction and forestry practices as well. Practices such as clear cutting and even just removing old growth trees from forests and over cutting down healthy forest is absolutely disastrous. Forest mismanagement. It's probably one of these things that actually is a bigger issue than what's going on in agriculture. Agriculture, it's once we get our minds wrapped around soil health a bit, it's quite easy to see how destructive industrialized agricultural practices are. But there's other things that have been going on for longer than industrialized agriculture, for longer than our use of modern tractors and large scale tilling and processing equipment, chemical usage of all kinds is relatively quite new on the scene compared to destructive forestry practices. And then again, the really bigger picture, to me, the biggest picture of all, is desertification. How any ecosystem destruction can lead to the world around us becoming a desert. And to me also, this is the real decline of the West. It's what's going on in here, the flattening out of our thinking. I don't know if any of you are familiar with, but I would suggest that you do familiarize yourself with the works of John Taylor Gatto. He's got some great books, a couple little books called Dumbing Us Down, Weapons of Mass Instruction, and then also The Underground History of American Education. I don't know if he completed multi-volumes of that or just the first volume, but it's a little bit more of a dense book. But anyway, John Taylor Gatto was a public school teacher in New York City for 30 years or so, and he writes, he found personally, and then he writes about how, as the titles indicate, the American education system dumbs us down. So really, yeah, desertification, the loss of diversity and health, of ecosystem resiliency all around us to the point where the earth literally becomes a desert. Yeah, to me, that's the real decline of the West. And the ability to think in terms of complex systems, in terms of Gestalt versus reductionist, only in reductionist terms. So that's essentially it, friends. I want to urge everyone to adopt a more wholesome, and I mean that in multiple ways, the sense of that term, a wholesome definition for what soil is, And then I want to close out this talk by suggesting that soil is much, much more than an agricultural topic. Okay, soil, as I had indicated, the soil carbon sponge mitigates all energy fluctuations on Earth. And this year we're on track, 2023 is on track to be the hottest year on record. Well, it's also on track to be the coldest year on record. And I urge you all to think about how these conditions of instability are synonymous with the desert. When you go to the desert, you're going to experience wild fluctuations in temperature. And the reason is because there are no healthy ecosystems to mitigate that. You can see temperatures rise up to over 100 degrees in the day and drop down close to freezing at night. These are wild fluctuations compared to stable ecosystems where you might see 80 degrees in the day and 70 degrees at night. I mean, that's an example of say, the Hawaiian climate where it's very stable. But as I was just saying, we can all imagine and see that instability, this is what you experience in the desert. You will experience that it can be a beautiful blue sky, and it can be a horrific or incredibly dangerous storm 5 minutes later. And again, of course, you can see that can get wildly hot in the day and wildly cold at night. That's called climate instability. It's not global warming if it gets equally cold in the winter or even just every night. So sure, I would think that 2023 may be on track to be the hottest year on record, but it all depends on where you're measuring the temperature. If we were to, instead of taking air readings of the temperature, to take soil readings, we would find that it's drastically different where there's plant cover. Where there's good plant cover versus bare ground, you can expect to see half of the temperature. You can expect to see 75 versus it can get up to 150 degrees with bare ground in direct sunlight. And that is a huge difference. So soil is a complex system. Soil is gestalt. Soil is 4 legs of a table. It's the base material, dirt, plus plants, plus microorganisms, plus stabilized organic material. And then we get the excretions of living organisms, we get liquids, we get gases, and we get macroorganisms as well as part of the system. Okay, so that's it for the little talk today, friends. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that we are entering into a new era that is based on a paradigm shift. As I had said, away from kill and control, away from reductionist thinking, away from simply genetic determinism, to the point where we understand that we're living in a complex world of systems and systems within systems, and also that we are a part of that, and we can majorly influence the trajectory of which way health is going. Because all complex systems involve all of the players. They're not, these things that are happening on the earth around us are not independent of our actions. And yes, let's not be too reductionist in our approach and jump on some popular narratives that blame everything on factors that are actually relatively new on the scene. Okay, desertification, deforestation has been around a long, long time. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hawkeye Speaks.